I'm just going to say, if you haven't pissed yourself by the end of this review, I will consider that a personal fail on my part. Boom! Ha! See? Pissed yourself. I've always had a bit of a love-hate relationship with survival horror games. Sometimes they're pulse-poundingly scary to the point that you do not want to put them down, and then other times they shit you up so bad that you end up curled up in the fetal position, never to sleep again. Outlast manages to find that happy middle ground between I'm so invested I can't put this down and nope! Fuck that! Play it later. Outlast is a balls-to-the-wall first-person survival horror developed by Red Barrels. This game was showcased during the Sony conference at E3 last year, where they showed off a bunch of indie games, and Outlast was one of them. So after watching the trailer, which I could barely sit through, by the way, I decided, yep, I am truly wet through. My pants are filled with cake. This looks exciting. Definitely hyped. Definitely going to buy this game. So you can imagine my delight when I found out that PS Plus members and PS4 owners could pick it up for free throughout the month of February. Wait, I'm a PS Plus member. I'm a PS4 owner. Hey, thanks for all those strokes and heart attacks the world over, Sony. I'll see you in court. So February rolled round, Outlast appeared in the PlayStation Store, and I downloaded it and I played it to completion, and I was satisfied with the game. It's a very good game. However, there are one or two minor gripes that I've got with it. So let's break it down and we'll see what the game does right and what could be improved on in future installments, starting with story. In Outlast, you are freelance investigative journalist Miles Upsaw, and you're called out to Mount Massive Asylum after you receive an anonymous tip that the owners of the asylum, this world's equivalent to the Umbrella Corporation, the Murkoff Corporation, are doing some kind of sick experiment on the inmates of their nut house. So you show up, happy as Larry, driving along, and you gain entry to the asylum, only it's not too long before you realise things aren't at all what they seem. The place is covered with blood, bodies are strung up all around the place, and there's carnage everywhere, and you're even told by an impaled SWAT officer to get the fuck out of there while you still got a chance. Now, I understand that Miles has worked hard to rise to the top of his career in terms of being an investigative journalist, and I know that he wants to expose the truth and people need to know, but any sane person would have bailed within 2 seconds of setting foot inside that asylum. I know I would have been like, right, finally made it into the asylum, time to see what that tip was about. What's that over there? Oh, a shelf full of decapitated human heads. Okay, so to get out, I'll just go exactly the way I came. Yeah, I thought so. All right, boys, sorry to bother you as you were. All right, nice one, boys. All right, see ya. Yeah, take care. Bye. But no, the crazy bastard presses on. Miles, you are the most retarded person that ever did live. You deserve everything that's coming to you, my friend.
Little pig.
You see? Totally deserve that. So after being attacked by the game's recurring villain, Chris Walker, aka Big Fat and Ugly, Christ, that sounds familiar, Miles is faced with the deranged Father Martin. He thinks that you have been sent by God to witness the acts of his cult, and he refuses to let you leave the asylum.
I'm sorry, my son. I didn't want to have to do this to you. But you can't leave. Not yet. There is so much yet for you to witness.
So what started as Miles coming to the asylum of his own free will and, like, you know, not fucking off when he had the chance, now becomes a frantic battle to simply leave the asylum, and all the while staying one step ahead of its homicidal inmates. So the story of Outlast does its job, even though it's not the main selling point of the game. The game's got a bunch of, like, horrible and interesting characters, such as the aforementioned Chris Walker, who's a bit like the Nemesis in the Resident Evil series, whereby he relentlessly hunts you for the rest of the game.
I'm coming. You won't have to kill yourself. I'll make the pain stop.
Not only him, but you've also got Father Martin, who I've already talked about, who, although he dresses like a priest, isn't a priest, he just believes he is. A pair of bollock naked twins who have got a real hard-on for killing and eating you. Pun fucking intended, by the way. And Dr. Traeger, who you meet in the game's third act, who has hands down the dirtiest arse I have ever seen on a video game character, and the scenes with this guy are absolutely the standout moments of the game. No scene sticks out in my memory like the scenes with Dr. Traeger in the third act of the game. There's a decent amount of twists and turns in the plot, as well as a great sense of mystery and intrigue concerning the mysterious Project Wall Rider. Now, I won't spoil what Wall Rider actually is for people who maybe haven't played that far in the game yet, but the first time that you see it is probably the best scare in the game. Although the plot is far from incomprehensible and really does hold its own as a narrative, I feel like there were a few plot holes here and there that could have done with a little bit more explanation. I mean, maybe some of the blanks are filled from the numerous documents that you find littered about the asylum that I didn't find all of, but a game should really stand on its story narrative alone, and then collectibles should just serve to further immerse you. Not everybody's going to find all the collectibles, so to leave out key elements of the plot from the main story and put them in those collectibles, ever so slightly slack in my opinion. Also, the way the game wraps up in the end left me wanting more. Like, no spoilers here, but the ending just made me feel like ever so slightly bittersweet, and like everything that I've done for the last 8 hours was all for naught. I just remember sitting there being like, that's it? Surely not. I'm just saying, while the game starts strong and has a very strong third act, the ending itself leaves a lot to be desired, to be honest. Can't imagine anyone playing through Outlast and being like, well, it's one of the greatest stories I've ever played, but it definitely holds its own and does its job within that survival horror confine. But fuck all that story bollocks. What's the gameplay like? Well, I'm about to tell you, me old shillshine. Fucking gameplay, mate. As the first screen of the game tells you, you've got 3 options in Outlast: run, hide, or die. No attack button or weapons to be found, it's just you and your body versus homicidal maniacs wielding 2x4s. How about sending some of that 2x4 action my way? I could have used it when I was getting my skull caved in by mental patients. As most of the asylum is pitch black, you must use the camcorder mechanic, navigating the sewers and dorms and all the other environments of the asylum using the camera's night vision mode so you can actually see where you're going. The night vision mode isn't unlimited, however, and the battery of the camera drains the more you use it. Luckily, there are convenient batteries scattered throughout the asylum. Stock the fuck up on these guys, I can't stretch that enough. Most of the asylum is black as arseholes, and you do not want to be caught without your night vision. There was one section of the game where you go into the asylum's gardens and it's totally dark with the exception of the occasional flash of lightning, and of course this was the one and only section of the game that I found myself completely without batteries. Frustrating ain't the word. Luckily, this asylum has more spare batteries than inmates, and that's actually a gripe I've got with the game. In the beginning of the game, the battery life draining adds to the tension, and you really have to conserve that battery and like strategically plan when to use it. But as the game progresses, the batteries are everywhere. If you're in a dark room and you've got no battery, look around for 5 minutes and there will be a battery there somewhere. And I understand the necessity of having that in the game, as most of it is dark, and if you're caught without any batteries you won't be able to progress through the game. But I don't know, that kind of annoyed me a little bit. What, has this place got an endorsement deal with Duracell or something? Duracell lasts longer, much longer. Now includes horrible mental scars! Paid for in full by the Murkoff Corporation. As well as using your camcorder to see in the dark, you also use it to film certain events throughout the game. This will be coupled with Miles jotting down a brief note of what he saw, which is a cool way to look into the character of an otherwise silent protagonist. It's also interesting to see the sort of declining mental state of Miles as the game progresses, as his notes become less and less like the notes of an investigative journalist and more like the ramblings of a madman. And that makes sense, being in a place like that is so horrible and so frightening. It would mess with your head, and I doubt you'd ever be the same again after being in a place like that. The objective of the game is a simple one: leave the asylum. But standing between you and leaving are the inmates. Now, a lot of these guys are quite easy to sort of give the slip and work around, but if you're unlucky enough to get noticed by them, the best thing you can do is to find yourself a hiding place. And these take one of two forms throughout the game. You can either shut yourself in a locker and suck your thumb, or hide under a bed and suck your thumb. There isn't really a lot of options for hiding, and I really wish that the game had opened up a bit there and provided a few more options. I mean, there's a desk here. Surely if I crawl under that desk, it'll be the same as hiding. No, he found you and now you're dead. Oh, a toilet cubicle? Surely shutting myself in there is the same as shutting myself in a fucking locker? No, he found you and now you're dead. And sometimes, right, I'll give you an example. There was one time where I was in the sewer and I'm faced with Big Fat and Ugly, and obviously you can't fight them, so I had to hide. And I found myself crouching in this sewer pipe, and the dude just would not fuck off and give me a chance. He was just sort of pacing back and forth in my immediate area. And this is really where I wish the game had a rock throw mechanic, like Far Cry 3, where you can sort of throw a rock and misdirect your enemy and throw them off your trail, so you can actually proceed in the level and have a fighting chance. Also, when I was watching PC playthroughs, I noticed a mechanic where an inmate will pop out of nowhere and grab Miles, and the player's got to violently shake them off by shaking their mouse from side to side. In the PS4 version, these encounters are still there, but there's no prompts to do anything when they grab you. They sort of grab you, it's a jump scare, it's all very terrifying, and then the inmate just seems to teleport out of existence. That just seems like a weird design choice to me. Like, is it really so hard to replace move mouse with mash circle or something? I know that's not really a big deal, but it was just a weird design choice that I thought was worth noting. Now, while the game starts out very strong and really gets you intrigued, the mission variety quickly becomes tiresome and quite stale. The objectives in the game are generally go from point A to point B, and it occasionally mixes it up with turn 3 valves or flick 3 switches missions or go and retrieve this key missions. This kind of gameplay quickly becomes repetitive. Even the recurring encounters with Big Fat and Ugly become repetitive. It's scary as fuck the first batch of times that you meet him, but by the 4th, 5th and 6th time he's showing up, the intensity is somewhat diluted and the fear is replaced with feelings of frustration instead. And this brings me to my biggest complaint of the game. The sense of direction in this game is outright fucking terrible. A lot of the time I found myself standing in the dark, being pursued by 3 or 4 inmates and not having a fucking clue where I'm supposed to go. So the only way to figure out where you're supposed to go is by exploring, and that's easier said than done when it's pitch fucking black and you're being chased by the inmate equivalent of the Hulk. So you die a lot, and this kind of trial and error gameplay can quickly turn Outlast into a frustrating chore in certain sections. Now, I'm not one of those gamers that enjoys having my hand held through the whole game, and I'm not asking for like an objective marker or something. In fact, in a game like this, it would have ruined the tension and realism that the atmosphere creates. But come on, couldn't Miles have found like a little hand-drawn map on the side, or like some blueprints, just so the player has something to reference and get their bearings? Maybe I'm just stupid, or maybe I'm just not a good gamer. Well, I doubt it, because I've been playing games my entire life. Or maybe it was the intention of the developer, so you don't really know where you're going. That stress adds to your experience playing the game, but all I know is that I got lost far too many times that I care to mention during my playthrough of Outlast. And the game even turned me into a cheating bitch face, as I had to consult quite a few Let's Plays in certain sections of the game just so I fucking knew where I was supposed to go. I cheated. I feel bad about myself. In terms of length, you can clock the game in about 7 or 8 hours. Now, some might say that's too short, but I think it was just right, as adding another 3-4 hours onto the game would have felt a little bit tacked on, and we would have inevitably got the same style of missions, but just dressed up differently. So I'm glad that it was a relatively short game. There are collectible documents for the completionists to go after, and that might add slightly more onto the total gameplay time, but I can't imagine much more. The more I think about it, the more I realise that the gameplay of Outlast left a lot to be desired, at least for myself. And if there were to be any future instalments of this franchise, which I'm open to, by the way, in case you were wondering, I would really hope that some innovations are implemented Like I said, with a rock throwing mechanic so that you could distract your enemies and have a fair chance. More hiding spots and little maps that you could find, or blueprints or schematics, just so you could get an idea of where you were supposed to go. I guess I had a good time playing Outlast, but there were a lot of things that fucked me off about it. So that's that for gameplay. What did it look like though? And how was that scary atmosphere handled? Well, presentation! The presentation department is really where Outlast comes into its own. Graphically, it's not amazing. I mean, it's not terrible, but it's nothing special. It's fine. But that atmosphere, holy shit. If you are into horror games and survival horror games just for the scares, then Outlast is for you. Just go and buy it. Just download it for free. Just get Outlast. If you're in it for the scares and purely the scares, Outlast is for you. Its atmosphere is nailed. It's terrifying. The interior environments of the asylum, all the environments in the game actually, they just fit the mood perfectly. They unsettled me to my very core. It's like I didn't like this game. I didn't like it. It was scary. And I guess that's what the game was going for primarily. Like, this game had the ability to make this 23-year-old metalhead wet himself with fear, and it's up there with the survival horror greats, in my opinion. And the sound effects and soundtrack go a long way to adding to that unsettling atmosphere. Like, you'll shut yourself in a locker and you can hear your heart beating fast, and you can hear like your laboured, panicked breathing, and like little swells will happen in the soundtrack when an enemy comes in, and then it'll sort of die down, and it's like it uses like little musical cues, kind of like Left 4 Dead. Like, a certain music will play when a certain special infected appears in that game, and in this game it helps you sort of know when danger's past and it's safe to come out your locker or get out from under your bed. The sound effects are great, subtle things like when Big Fat and Ugly's chasing you down and you hear the rattle on his chain and you hear his signature theme, which is one of the more terrifying songs in the game. Not pieces of music, I shouldn't really say songs, but like the subtle sound of his chain rattling as he's walking around looking for you, and his and his breathing while he's looking for you, and like stuff like the pitter patter of rain on the windows, or like the distant cries of angry inmates. It's all piss scary. In certain sections of the game, the soundtrack will just go deathly quiet, and it's usually in a dark place where even with night vision you can't see a fucking thing in front of you, and it makes you squirm in your seat. You're just like, I don't like this game no more. I don't like it. I don't like it. It was terrifying. Jump scares are absolutely fucking everywhere in this game. Whether it's an inmate lunging from nowhere, or you open a door and a fucking corpse swings out of nowhere, or steam. Fucking steam in this game shit me up. There was one section in the sewers, like I said, the soundtrack had completely cut out. I couldn't see anything even in front of my fucking face and nothing. And you're walking down through all these pipes, and then one of them just goes psss, and I'm like, ah! There was fucking steam. Nothing happened, but I shit my pants. And this game is chock full of jump scares and shit your pants moments. And I hate jump scares. I can't stand them. So playing through this game was like facing a fear for me in a lot of ways. But several pairs of underwear later, I came through it. I wonder how many times in this video I have made a piss or shit yourself joke. Probably over 9,000 times. Probably. On a side note, I love the fact that in this game, the things that pursue you aren't of supernatural. They're not zombies like they are in most other games. They're not vampires. They're just insane people. And that's where the real scares from Outlast come from the realism and tension created, and it really plays up the survival element of survival horror. Look how wide my fucking eyes go when I talk about survival horror, man. The shit's gonna hit the fan. Nothing even needs to fucking happen in this game for it to be scary, because the atmosphere created just just does it automatically. You could stand in any room, in any section of this game, and something about it would creep you out, at least make you feel uneasy, even if there's no inmates around, even if it's just you in a dark room and the rain's beating on the windows, you'd still be a bit like, I don't fucking like it. And like I said, the music in this game does a lot to add to that scare. It all remain at this sort of low, haunting, like sort of slowly building kind of melody when your enemy can't see you, or maybe it's creeping around, and there'll be the occasional brrr, brrr kind of shit. And then when the enemy sees you, that's when it kicks in full intensity. Lots of strings, lots of horns, lots of dissonant melodies, lots of like harmonic minors, which definitely serves a game like this. The music was absolutely perfect. I wouldn't have scored this game any differently. But I did get sick of that dying theme, but probably only because I died a lot, and it is very, it's like well up there, and it's like, calm it down, Outlast. Have a day off. But Outlast's greatest strengths are in its scares, and it's one of those games that it really does, like, it makes you panic as you're playing it, and it does make you, it's just tense, it's intense, man. It's one of them that there's a ton of moments in it, and if one of those moments didn't scare you, that's completely fine, because there's 10 more waiting around the corner that are going to make you absolutely piss your pants. I have images burnt into my head from Outlast that I won't forget for a while. You know, when you've finished playing a game and you think it's time for bed and you switch off the lights, after playing Outlast, I run the fuck upstairs. I'm telling you that for nothing. It is definitely a game that I would not recommend to the easily scared or the faint of heart. In conclusion, I'll say that Outlast is very well done and scary as piss, and more than worth a playthrough on PC and PS4, especially on PS4 as it's free at the moment, although there are certain things within the gameplay that I really wish they'd done differently, and had they done it differently, this game would have been next level. But for the atmosphere alone, it's worth a playthrough. If you're a fan of horror games or even stealth games, I recommend this game to you, my friend. You could do a lot worse than Outlast, and even with all its shortcomings, it is fucking fun to play through. And it did reduce one or two of my best friends who were proper geezers into screaming little schoolgirls that couldn't hack it. Manly! Although I shouldn't take the piss, it turned me into a fucking screaming schoolgirl as well. Why was it so scary? No one told me it was gonna be so scary. So Outlast is available on PS Plus for free for the rest of the month, so you've got absolutely no excuse not to play it, unless you're watching this in the future, in which case you buy it like everyone else. Whatever the case is, comment below what you thought of it and share your experiences with me. I'd really love to hear about them. Right now that we've got that horrific, terrifying game out the way, I have got a bunch of good reviews coming up, or planned reviews over the next month and a bit, including Thief, Infamous Second Son, and Titanfall. But next week, I'm going to be doing a movie-based video. So come back and join me next week when I will be running down what I consider to be the top 5 most underrated superhero movies of all time. So join me for that, it's going to be a laugh. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to check out my sponsors over at overlordgaming.us. Leave me a thumbs up, smash that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys next time I can be asked to record anything. I farted. No, goodbye.